Voting is still underway in New Hampshire tonight in the first primary of this presidential election year. After the chaotic finish to the Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire results could begin to clear some confusion in the Democratic race. Judy Woodruff begins our coverage reporting from New Hampshire.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold go.
Voting kicked off at the stroke of midnight in places like Dixville Notch, population 5. The first votes went to a candidate not even on the state's ballot, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
And now on the Democrat side, there was 1 vote for Buttigieg, and 1 vote for Sanders, and 2 write-in votes for Mike Bloomberg.
But it's Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, followed by former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who are expected to be the top finishers among this unusually large field of Democrats. Voters, more than half of whom were undecided as of a few days ago, lined up before the sun rose over the Granite State.
People are really invested and interested, and they try to learn what the candidates, their specific candidate, stands for.
The candidates themselves descended on diners and polling places on this, their final drizzly morning in New Hampshire for last-minute handshaking.
Thanks for coming.
Buttigieg yesterday joined moderates in the party in targeting Sanders, who won here in 2016 by 22 points for being too liberal.
We have to choose a responsible approach that can actually get big things done and answer the question of how we're going to get from point A to point B.
Sanders boasts an energetic base of believers in his progressive message. And when I ran into him this morning at a diner, he pushed back on the chorus of criticism from his opponents.
The people of this country finally want a government that represents all of us, not just the 1%. It's going to be grassroots support that is going to win it for us. Working people are going to win it for us. Young people are going to win it for us. We're feeling really good.
For the many undecided, like Karen Bugler, the time had finally come to make a choice.
It was a tough one. It was very, very tough. I have been a Biden person forever. Made the decision to vote for Bernie.
Ariana Harris planned to celebrate her 18th birthday by voting for the first time. Buttigieg was at the top of her list.
I feel like he's one of the politicians that says things and means it. He's not just saying it just to get votes. He has a little more knowledge of, people like me being on the younger side instead of, other presidents who have been older.
Other candidates want strong showings in New Hampshire to stay in the mix. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren vowed to keep fighting, even as her polling numbers declined in the run-up to primary day.
I got the best chance at beating Donald Trump because I'm going to bring this party together.
And former Vice President Joe Biden, whose supporters fear he'll show poorly, shocked Democrats here by leaving for South Carolina, a move to shift his campaign to friendlier terrain.
The rest of the nation is out there. There's an awful lot of electoral votes to be had.
Does it seem like you're giving up on New Hampshire?
I'm not giving up on New Hampshire. Don't poke that in my face.
Meanwhile, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar has been gaining traction, following her strong debate performance here last week and Biden's weak finish in Iowa.
Something's happening here, and we just want to seize the moment. I actually bring the receipts. I've won in the red and purple districts.
Voter Dave Bugler said Klobuchar had swayed him.
I went for Amy, voted for Amy. I wanted Biden, but I felt the same way, that he was getting, really bullied. So Amy impressed me the first time she came out.
Other candidates are still looking for their breakout moment. Colorado Senator Michael Bennet.
I hope we surprise folks today. We'll see what happens.
Billionaire Tom Steyer, Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, and entrepreneur Andrew Yang.
We're going to have a great day, a great night. We're going to have a big party and celebrate an historic outcome.
Many voters tell us they're picking their candidate with a single urgent question in mind: who can beat President Trump? He was on the ground himself in New Hampshire last night, rallying his backers amid the Democratic tangle.
We have so much more enthusiasm than that's not even close.
They're all fighting each other. They don't know what they're doing. They can't even count their votes.
But votes will be counted in the Granite State, and the results will set the next stage of a primary season that promises to keep going. And for more on the candidates' final sprints to win New Hampshire, I am joined here in Manchester by Adam Riley. He's political reporter for WGBH. It's our partner public media station. Adam Riley, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Judy.
So you've been covering politics in New Hampshire for a while, and you've spent the last days, actually weeks, out there talking to voters. Tell us what you're feeling, what you're hearing from them in these final days.
I'd say at the outset that I think the reports that we've heard of a split in the Democratic Party and among the Democratic base between people who want to tack left and people who want to hew to the center, that's a very real thing. I was in Derry today, which is a town that went for Trump in 2016. A lot of Democrats there said that they wanted a more reasonable, moderate approach. There were people who were voting for Buttigieg, Klobuchar, a guy who's voting for Biden, even though he said he wants to vote for Yang, but he thinks Biden is the Democrats' best bet. But there are plenty of people, even in a town like that, where Democrats struggled last time around, who see Sanders as their best hope. So this is not a media narrative that we're imposing on the race. This is a real thing. The party is in the midst of an identity crisis.
And this is a community, a town, you were telling me earlier, that went big for Donald Trump.
By a solid margin, yeah, more than New Hampshire as a whole. So.
And still there were Sanders supporters.
Still there were Sanders supporters. One woman I spoke with who is supporting Sanders told me, a decade ago, I couldn't have imagined supporting Bernie Sanders. He's so far left. But Donald Trump's presidency has pushed me further to the left. The country has gone so far to the right that I feel like we need a course correction. So.
The other interesting thing we're seeing is after Iowa, Joe Biden not doing as well as people thought, people rethinking their vote. What are you picking up about that?
Well, I was a little surprised, given the results that we've seen for Biden recently in the conventional wisdom around his campaign, that one gentleman I talked to said he's voted for Republicans, Democrats, and Independents in the past, that he thought that Biden was still the Democrats' best bet. So there is some, I think, kind of residual loyalty there. But that being said, I think all the signs point to him having a disappointing finish. You mentioned in your piece him getting out of town. It's also worth mentioning another candidate who has not gotten out of town but is taking steps to preempt negative coverage this evening is Elizabeth Warren. Her campaign manager, Roger Lau, sent out a memo to supporters a couple of hours ago saying, whatever happens tonight, here's why we are going to continue organizing in all 50 states. Here's why she, whatever happens tonight, is the candidate best positioned to become the nominee, and why you shouldn't put too much stock in a Buttigieg surge or a Klobuchar surge. So I feel like she's trying to get ahead of things too.
It's almost as if the other candidates know or expect, they think that Pete Buttigieg, maybe Amy Klobuchar are going to do well.
Buttigieg and Klobuchar, and I think also Sanders. I mean, one striking thing which I should highlight is when you go around and talk to Sanders supporters. I spent the weekend talking with people at Sanders events and Warren events. I wanted to get a sense of how they were choosing between the two. And for the diehard Sanders faithful, it wasn't really a choice at all. It was like as soon as he was in the race, they were going to be with him. He was their guy. They see him as this rock of ideological purity.
That's Bernie Sanders loyalty.
Yeah, they completely love him. And then conversely, Warren supporters, I think also were not overly enticed by Sanders. You know, they see him as maybe a little bit overly rigid. They really like the idea of electing the first female president. But they're really two distinct camps, which surprised me. Then the question is, you know, okay, let's say Bernie Sanders becomes the nominee. Will Elizabeth Warren supporters work for him the way they would for their candidate?
And then hanging over all of this, as we mentioned in our report, this agonizing over the choice because they're worried about Donald Trump. This is, after all, a state where Donald Trump won by, 10 points?
Or a state that Hillary Clinton
that Hillary Clinton
but that the president
primary.
Repeatedly says,
exactly.
Well, that Sanders won, and then President Trump, almost won it in the general, and has continued to insist.
And has continued to come in.
You know, it's a false insistence that voter fraud cost him the election.
But he had, the president had 12,000 fans here last night.
Right, yeah, he had 12,000 fans, and I saw a lot of Trump supporters turning out at the polls in Derry to make a good showing for him. And the thing that really two things actually struck me about talking with the Trump supporters. Didn't meet any Weld supporters, they were all Trump voters. I don't detect a whiff of uncertainty on their part that he will be reelected in November. As the Democrats agonize, can we beat him? Who's the right person to beat him? The Republicans, I think, are flush with confidence. The other thing that I picked up on is early on in the rise of Trump, there was a lot of hedging from Republicans when you would talk to them about him. Oh, I don't like the way he tweets, but he does this thing well. Or, oh, I wish he'd be a little nicer to people. That has dropped. You still hear it a little bit, but they're pretty much all on board with his way of doing business.
And that's what makes Democrats worried and anxious to make the right decision.
Indeed.
Adam Riley with WGBH, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
And please join us tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern for our special PBS live coverage of the results of the New Hampshire primary.